Hi, everyone. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my Takeout, my Emil Amok's Takeout. The sign, if you're watching, says breaking news because we're doing a show. We're doing a show. We're doing it live. We're talking about the news. This is what we do. No one asks about how Asian Americans feel about anything. It's AAPI month or Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander month, May. It's all these other months too. It's like Eat a Pizza Day. It's all these other things happening because you got to share. You got to share your time. But we're like halfway through. If you haven't wished someone happy Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, do it. Do it now. Uh, we're going to have Professor Dan, joining me from the College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. In the meantime, I want to, or first, I want to tell you about my show. I'm doing a show. Yeah, I'm doing a show, an actual show. Unlike this, where I talk. This is a talking show. I do a monology show. I do my Emil Amok monologues. And I'm doing a 5-10 minute version on May 19th. I'm doing a 20-minute version on June 2nd. It's at the San Francisco Marsh, not the Berkeley Marsh. I like the Berkeley Marsh, but I like the San Francisco Marsh. It's in my old neighborhood, and I talk about things like Trump and popes and ditties. Trump's, popes, and ditties, which may or may not be part of my bigger show, Emil Amok 69, Emil Amok, 69. And I explain, is it a sex act? I mean, are you affected by Diddy's freakouts, Emil? No, I'm not, but it's 69. Wow. My version of 69 would be nothing like Diddy's freakouts. But my explanation of Emil Amok, 69, I explain, got to come see it June 2nd, a little portion. And then it's my way of working out my show as I make my way through the fringe cycle in North America. I'm not in Orlando this week. A lot of my friends who do the fringes are in Orlando. Martin Dockery is in Orlando. Um, a lot of people who I met in Fresno are in Orlando, and then they go on the circuit and they go up through New York and New England and then across in Canada. I'm just going to join some of the fringe circuit in North America in Canada later in the summer and then go across Canada. And I guess I will we'll have I'll be carrying the banner for the 51st state. I don't know. I still working that part of the show out. I did a version of that show in Fresno when that Oval Office visit. I was like writing the show as I was going on, talking about the first 100 days. We're going to be into the first 200 days in August, maybe the first 300 days. So today on today's show, incidentally, I'm going to talk about that. But check out my show, SF Marsh. That's this coming Monday, May 19th, and then June 2nd, doing bits of Trump's, popes, and ditties there at the Monday Night Marsh. You can get your tickets over there. Go to Ovation Tix. It's a sliding scale, so we're not Maine. They're not Trumpy over there. So check those out. And also, I want to mention my friend Ishmael Reed. I mean, you can find the interview I did with him on our YouTube channel at Emil Amok 1 on YouTube. And Ishmael talks about James, the Pulitzers, and the attack on DEI, Life Among the Aryans, his new play. We talk about South African refugees and more in the interview. But he has written this show. It's actually a few years old, but it rarely gets out there on the stage, except the Black Rep Group in Oakland is doing it. They premiered it last night. I guess it's a premiere. They opened last night on the 15th. The 16th, they have a show. I'm going to see the show over the weekend, but it's Life Among the Aryans. It's a show that predicted the insurrection. So, of course, it's kind of interesting, right? I mean, Ishmael Reed is a kind of prophet of sorts. He says it in the column I did on him in the Oakland Post today. So check that out. Get your tickets at Eventbrite, eventbrite.com for Life Among the Aryans, for the Black Repertory Group, Ishmael Reed's play, It's a funny play. It's satirical. You'll like it. Check it out. And so now this is our takeout. I got in. I'm here in my COVID closet. We talk about the news. I want to bring up Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez because we talk. I want to talk about Trump. Right, Trump is coming back, and I I really I don't know about Trump now, especially about the Arabs and the speech he gave, and Axios says Trump's speech. Axios and other news folks say they heard Trump's Saudi speech, and it says it writes 24 years of U.S. policy. I mean, what's going on here, right? Where Trump is prioritizing realism over idealism and rejected America's past lectures on how to live or how to govern your own affairs. And essentially, you've got the president saying, hey, if you're on my side, I don't care. If you're with me, I don't care. You live the life the way you want. He says this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists giving you lectures on how to live or how to govern your own affairs or who you want to kill, I guess, huh? Because remember, MBS, Mr. BS, oh, that's not Trump. That's Mohammed bin Salman. He was responsible for the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, right? And for a while, the U.S. was very moral and very against Saudi Arabia. Biden called Saudi Arabia the pariah. And so now they're our friends. And now Trump wants a plane from the dictator in Qatar. And now it's Trump looking shameless, going off to the Middle East, and he's not even bothering to see our ally Israel. And here's Trump talking about being against anti-Semites, and here he's acting sort of kind of anti-Semitic in a way, huh? So let's bring up Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez to talk about this as our lead topic. Dan, what's going on with Trump? I don't understand. Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, Professor Emeritus, San Francisco State University. Dan, what's going on with Trump?
No, he's doing some interesting work. Some people can get things right for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
and
what's he getting right?
This is one of those things. He's distanced himself on the positive side, I think, slightly from Putin. He's also distanced himself substantially from Netanyahu.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very important. He sent Witkoff to deal directly with Hamas, which is contradictory to the we ain't dealing with no terrorist position that the United States has maintained even before 9/11, right? Even before 2001, we don't deal with terrorists. The reality is the United States, through the CIA, through the NSA, and through other less, let's say, official means, have always dealt with terrorists.
Yeah.
You have to. If you really want to understand international relations, you have to have information on everybody that has to be accurate.
That's why we have spies, Dan. Come on.
Yes, exactly. We have spies. Exactly. And we've got double and triple doers, folks that are just playing the field and are really outstanding at their skills, their overall skills. And I'm not just talking about guns and martial arts and stuff like that. I'm talking about how to gather intelligence, how to sweet talk people into yielding up different intelligence, making what this president would call deals.
Yeah.
And that's really the way things get done.
And the thing is, it's not just being duplicitous, it's being triplicitous and fourplicitous and quintuplicitous or whatever the word. I mean, it's like
multi.
Yeah.
Multiplicitous.
Like you can't trust anyone. And that's why when you see a spy movie and they try to make them human and you want to like them, how can you trust a spy? You can't trust a spy. They're all lying. This is the if Trump is a liar out in public, the spies are the that's where the real deals are made, right? Or at least they're informing the public liar, like the politicians like Trump. I'm not like you know morally judging him, although a liar is a liar. But that's what politicians do. But it just seems dirty. It just seems, and now it's out in the open, right? It's out in the open. Here's Trump. He's praising the Saudis, who Biden said, "Hey, MBS," and the way the mnemonic I use to remember MBS and know that it's not BSM, which would be a totally different kind of embarrassment, I guess. But MBS is Mr. BS. That's what I think about it. That's my mnemonic device. That's how I think.
Okay, that's simple enough.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah,
Mohammed
I'm
bin
gonna now.
Salman.
I'm gonna contradict you in a way.
That's
Okay,
all right. You can
that
country.
is. I know. Let me put it this way: ex operators, former
CIA.
operators,
Yeah.
former intelligence operatives. Okay,
Yeah.
and while you're right, they are very skilled at being duplicitous, multiplicitous, and getting information from whatever sources they can. My major point was they you have to deal with terrorists in real terms.
Okay.
So it's really just subterfuge to say we don't deal with terrorists. All right. So
Right.
so what Trump did by sending Witkoff to deal directly with Hamas and breaking that rule was, in my opinion, above board and a good thing.
Okay.
Okay. It doesn't mean that Trump understands what the hell he was doing. Okay.
He's accidental.
But it does. He had the intention of stopping the attacks on Palestinians by Netanyahu and his civilian military. It's really kind of contradictory, right?
Yeah.
Civilian military, but yeah, that's what he was trying to do. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
He was pushing getting all of the hostages released. That's a good thing. Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about the bad thing. The bad thing is MBS is still seen as responsible for the killing of a journalist, and we are there even after we have shamed him and shunned him, and have tried to distance ourselves from Saudi Arabia. Now what? There's
Well,
like
okay, if you want to,
minutes. There's enough
okay,
time.
I agree with you. It's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. There has to be real criticism there. If you really want to do it right, you got to go all the way back to 2001 and 9/11,
Oh
and
yeah.
understand that all of the perpetrators that we know of, right,
Mm.
were from Saudi. So
Yeah.
what more do you need to know?
Well,
So there's a direct relationship, even pre MBS, even before he was able to take the leadership role. Okay,
right,
even pre Khashoggi, right?
right,
There's
right,
all of this stuff going on. What was Osama bin Laden's family?
right.
His family was also Saudi.
So,
Okay,
how do we deal with this, or do we just say, do we conclude that this is the new amoral world we live in, and Trump is just being pragmatic? Hey, we got to deal with these guys, and then in the meantime, the Israelis can't be very happy that the
I'm glad
U.S.
they're not happy. I'm
Yeah.
glad they're not happy
Well,
because
I
that,
mean,
that country is being run by extremists that are like the kinds of people that Steve Bannon and Steve Miller would like to have pulling the strings here in the United States. And they're doing that right out in the open.
yeah. Well,
You know?
Trump
So
is
so
doing
what's the difference? What's the difference between the right, the extreme right in
Mm,
Israel
mm.
and the people who are in power, whether or not you consider them extreme right, right?
Oh,
Right now in the United States of America. Look at what they're bringing before the Supreme Court.
yeah,
Why are they bringing it before the Supreme Court? And the answer is very simple because they have confidence, at least so far, but it's failing them, right?
yeah,
They have confidence that they're going to get favorable decisions.
yeah.
That's the reason. Real
And
simple.
and so what we have here is it's a world where all the cards are out in the open. They're showing their. It's like it's playing no deception. It's just out in the open. This is a way, and it's a power play, right? I
The,
mean,
the deception was being committed by the standard party mechanisms that have been in existence forever in American society. but and the preservation of the two-party system. That's really where it's at. Okay, that's really where it's at. The criticisms that come from the alienated youth, and I'm talking about people from not just their teen years and 20s, but all the way up to 40 years old. Their alienation from the two-party system, the existence of a large number of people, I think a plurality of people who see themselves as independent, right?
Yeah.
That's a good, solid indication. A lot of people who are independents right here in my neighborhood
Yep.
are quite sharp, quite intelligent. They also are college educated. They hold professional positions. I mean, this neighborhood went crazy. Before COVID, with sales. It made me really happy because it increased the value of my property, right? So that's cool.
Right.
But at the same time, there's basically two races in this neighborhood: Asian and white. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that's San Francisco these days. And the reason why your property values are going up is because they're not making any more of San Francisco. It's 7x7. That's it. And that is what we're dealing with.
That's the math. That you're absolutely right.
And that's why I left it. That's why I left it. Because I didn't value the capitalist equation. I wanted the wide open spaces.
Well, that attracted a lot of people. A lot of people left the city, especially in the 80s particularly. Yeah, a lot of people left the city.
Now
they wanted a sports court and a pool. So, and you could get it. You only had to go out about 25 to 35 miles, and you could get that.
And also you get genuine fruits and nuts versus the kind that you get real ones out there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So let's just wrap up on the Saudi Arabia thing, because
there's more. There's more, right? Not only is he doing that, but he's dealing with Qatar. Okay?
Yeah.
And Qatar. You can't in 2017 there's famous, right, a video of him saying they fund the terrorists. Okay. And they're right, it's true. And they've been funding the Houthis and their war in Yemen for decades, really. I had student refugees, most of them women, right, from Yemen, in the Tenderloin. The Tenderloin is, of course, the receiving geographic area in San Francisco for refugees. So it started substantially with some Chinese, but especially Vietnamese, right?
Yeah.
And then Cambodians, right? And more recently, the Yemenis. There's a significant community.
Right. But Dan, what is the guiding principle for Trump? It doesn't seem like morality has anything to do with it.
It's ego. It's ego and wealth. It's greed.
Yeah, and not for the U.S., but for himself. For himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And which seems to be unlawful and unconstitutional. And it seems that every time that the Arabs, the Saudis.
Yeah, but there's a significant portion of American society that worships greed. Okay, and think first of all, what do people think of when they see a wealthy person? When they see a Bill Gates, even when they see a Thiel or a Musk, and they know that these guys are all billionaires, one of the essential assumptions that people tend to make is, one, that they're smart, and two, that they're honest.
Oh no, I didn't know if honesty. I think number one, they see a rich person, they see a successful person, maybe someone who's smart, but honesty, I don't know. That's
people. Why would? Okay, so
I don't see them as honest. I see them.
So does that mean that people who want to get their BA degrees and their MBAs, right? Does that mean that they're thinking about being dishonest and getting rich any way they can?
No, it means that they're being naive about how people who really amass that kind of wealth get that way. And I think that some of them get disillusioned when
there you are, Emil, with your generous humanitarian soul.
I think that's true though, because
Yeah,
people
I'm the
start
Jesus.
out.
I'm for the Jesus that kicked the merchants, the money lenders out of the temple.
Yes, of
That's
course.
my Jesus. Okay.
Yes, that's my Jesus too.
All right. Well.
I'm for that Jesus. I'm for that.
Okay. Well, there it is.
Kick the money lenders out.
Yep. When
And
the
maybe they,
people.
yeah, but maybe people can use better nails next time.
Oh no. Oh gosh. Oh my.
For G. Hey, how
Oh
about zip ties next time? Use zip ties. That'd be a lot better than nails. Like
See, I
they
went
use
to Catholic school, so I had to spend way more time looking at Jesus on the cross than you did.
Hey, but
So
I'm a Catholic. Catholic. I got bodies on my cross. I got bodies. I
it's
don't get
not
the,
just a crucifix, right?
yeah.
It's truly a crucifix, not just a cross.
Although I have a cross here. I have a cross here.
Okay, cool.
This is a Protestant cross because there's no body. There's no body on the cross.
Right.
It just says believe, believe. That this good sign. Yeah. I see the body.
Uh,
Body. All right. So anyway, so now the Cutter thing is also weird because he is just getting, you know,
the freebie, oh, the plane, yeah,
I
but
mean,
he's taken a lot of flack for that, and I
he
think
should,
that
he deserves it. He
yeah,
deserves
oh,
it.
absolutely. What cracked
So,
me up was one of the senators, one of the Republican senators, a female, I can't remember her name, but she was the one who laughed it off and said they better check that thing from the front to the rear, right? From
yeah, yeah.
she couldn't come up with anything like stem to stern or any kind of nice,
Well,
you know,
front to the rear, that makes some people,
yeah, you
but
get it.
it's going to cost $1 billion to fix that plane. And but the point that a lot of people are making is $400 million plane. This is a gift, but it's like if I try to sell you my 1971 Alpha Spider for like $300, you'd say, "Oh,
What? Hey, give me that deal.
okay, $3,000. I sell it for 3,000. Doesn't run, sell it for $3,000, and it only cost you about like 90,000 to fix it, make it run, make it usable."
No, you should see my. I have a collection of parts for alphas. So
All right. Well, we'll talk about that later. I mean, I got an old Spider, but the old Spider.
seriously, you still do?
I still have the old Spider. Yeah, I still got the old. I think it's really junked up, but I still got it.
No, you got it. We have to talk. I didn't know you kept it.
Oh no, I have. Oh, we'll talk offline. Hey,
Yeah.
so what are we going to do about the plane? My feeling about the plane from Qatar is that, hey, that's our plane. Donald Trump gets it. If he sits on it, parks it at his library, that's
Yeah.
our plane. That's my. I
Yeah.
want to ride. I want to go from Sacramento to Baker to Fresno. I want to fly from San Francisco to
No, man.
Sacramento a couple of times on that
Yeah.
plane. That's my plane. That's a people's plane.
There was a comedian, and I'm trying to remember his name, but anyway, he cracked a Jewish American comedian, and he cracked a joke about all of the Jews who own Volkswagens, right? And
Oh
he
yeah.
said, "I have this nightmare. I have this nightmare that now that electronics is a heavy element of the modern car, particularly Volkswagens, that one day they're all going to start driving eastward, back to not to Israel but to Germany, where they're made, and so you're gonna accept a gift from Qatar and at the same time from Qatar, right? And
Yeah.
say at the same time, you know, they're people who fund terrorists, right?
Well,
Come on, man.
this is the thing.
Earlier, what we did was you said, okay, you can't trust any spies. And I need to tell you, most of the people I know that were spies were really committed to the better interests of the United States.
Oh yeah.
They really were. Okay.
Well, versus Trump, who is just into him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but see, there's a lot of people who are like that. You mentioned the word pragmatic. Okay.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of Americans who are simply pragmatic. And so they look at Trump as a better, more openly operative person, right? More open and transparent than Biden. And you know what? They're right.
Well,
they're right.
I maybe in the sense because Trump is so honest, he's amoral, and Biden is so moral that he comes across as a liar. Does that make sense?
Everybody assumes that most politicians are liars, okay,
Yes.
to some degree or another.
Yes.
And when you tend to do things the way that Biden did, they think you're doing undercover thing. They will not accept his plain motivation as his actual motivation. On the other hand, Trump is so direct and so limited in vocabulary, right? That he has no other operational style than to be that direct. And that people in especially in his base find absolutely trustworthy.
Yes, he's the best. The best.
He's one of us. He's one of us. When they say that, that means it, it's pretty clear. I'm not a psychologist, okay,
No.
but I do think that psychology is probably the greater portion of political thinking and political behavior.
He is very simplistic. He has a limited vocabulary. He repeats a lot of the same
like
phrases.
most of America, right?
Yeah.
What did you what are
You froze. You froze on me, Dan. Don't freeze on me, Dan. Oh, Dan's frozen. Let's see if he unfreezes. Oh yeah, he hasn't. He's still frozen. Well, there
you come back. Okay, wait.
There
Okay, that's better. I'm on the left, and I am further left than you. So.
Oh yeah, you are. You are. So on all scales, beauty scale.
On all scales, man. Well, I'm. Are you saying that I play? Are you saying I only know the bass section of, lower than middle C?
No, you are. You're a fine musician, and as your background indicates,
I'm out of practice, man. I've been asked to play by a number of people, and I always fake out.
But look, you also by your background, you are a fine sailor.
I wish I really miss that. I really miss it.
Well, I thought those were Pope hats, but you pointed out, those are the Pope made news today. He wants to bring people together. See, he's the moral leader. That's why I call him the anti-Trump. I call him the antidote to Trump in this Trump era. That you want a moral person. Here's
in more ways than one. He is absolutely seen by pro-Trump elements, right, as the anti-Trump, and they're critical of him for it.
Right. They're scared of him, and they should, because you need I think you need a moral leader. I think that's one of the problems with America, that it's going downhill. I'm more moral than the moral majority or the moral right.
Yeah.
Where are they? Where are they on all this? Duplicity.
People need to understand that your level of sarcasm is not, even though it can be sexy.
Yes.
Okay. Is not sexual in a discriminatory way.
Okay. All right.
And it is it is sarcasm. It is, and so
all right.
It's dangerous to do sarcasm these days, right? Especially if you do sarcasm in print. You can't. It doesn't capture the emotion. You can't. So you can be very ironic in tone, right? And indicate that by the way you make a sarcastic statement, but that doesn't translate to print, man. So that stuff can make you vulnerable.
Well, that's why literature is so great, right?
When it's long form literature, or at least even if it's short form, when it's very, instead of being dense, right? It's colorful.
But this is the problem, being in an illiterate America.
Oh man, have you hit on a biggie? That's 1,000 freaking % man.
If we had a more literate America, Donald Trump wouldn't be able to get away with the things that
absolutely true. Even if people were reading material that is contrary in fact, right, to reality, okay, to, if we want to call it, truth, okay, even if they're reading that stuff, there's still enough contact with the truth, right, and with an objective perspective.
Another. We have. So, see, Dan lives in San Francisco, and they just don't have great internet over there.
So you're not seeing this?
Oh no, we see you now. We see
okay.
see you now. We see you now. Oh yeah. So you got what happened here? Oh, all right, now you're back. Now you're back.
Yeah, but you're putting me on the that's
Okay,
I'm far more comfortable here.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, so there it is. Okay, so
you were truncated.
Yeah. I can't remember what it was we were on. Were we still talking about the Pope?
No, we're talking about morality.
Yeah, you brought up morality.
Oh no, literacy.
There is a term.
Literacy. I brought up literacy.
Okay. Let's go. Let's combine the two.
Yeah.
Let's combine the two. Scott Galloway.
Oh yeah, I like Scott.
One of the things, one of his critiques about American society is that we have lost young men, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear that it's not just about race. It's not just about young white men, right? It's also about young men, including African Americans who voted for Trump, or at least did not vote for Harris.
Yeah.
Okay. And Latinos who even more than African American men voted for Trump and not Harris. Now, in that instance, I think race has a lot to do with it because of the traditional animosity that people don't like to talk about, right? Between Latinos, Latinx, the Chicano or Mexican American community, and blacks. Okay, people have strong recollections, of course, or they probably have greater recollection. Let me put it that way, of the animosity between Asians and blacks, but particularly Korean Americans and blacks, right?
Yeah.
But and much of that was made up by the media, and so forth. But there is a strong, and I'm going to call it animosity, between Latinos and black, and some of that stuff is from the street, with competing gangs.
Yeah.
And some of that is in terms of economic competition, neighborhood turf wars, that kind of thing. So it's traditional, right? And it's not, even if you look at the attitude of immigrants that are newly arrived from Central America and South America, they also have a racialized attitude, towards darker peoples, and so that comes with them from their home countries into the United States, and it blends right in with the pre-existing set of racial preferences and derogatory racial perspectives, right? That already exist in the United States. So all of that is there. Now, my point is this.
Okay.
What people are looking at is young men are turning to church. There's an increase, at least among young white men, towards church.
Well, celibacy, natural out.
Natural priests, man. If you don't get any, if you're not getting laid regularly, right?
Celibacy, use it. Hey, hang a lantern on your problem.
According to Galloway, right? College-educated white men, a lot of them haven't had sex in a year.
A year? That's a long time.
I was thinking about what was I doing in my teens and 20s, and what were the guys around me doing in our 20s? I remember my older son said,
look, I do a bit. I tell a story. I told it last week. I probably tell a little bit about it again on May 19th about why I am not a priest.
Okay.
I'm going to tell.
You know what I mean? Besides, they wouldn't let you.
Oh no, they would have let me. I'm altar boy. I can tell that. I tell that story at the marsh on Monday, May 19th. Why I'm not a priest and other stories and others.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So
you weren't one of the guys that ate the hosts, right?
I let it melt in my mouth. I let it melt in my mouth. I like this.
No, I'm talking about the guys who broke into the thing and
Oh no, I don't. No, I respect.
Yeah, in the sacristy. The guys in the sacristy.
I tell a story about communicating with my with my catechism crush when she came up to the altar, and she came to receive communion. I communicated with her.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. Wait a minute.
I tell
Well,
that story.
well. Okay. You mean you had the dish underneath her chin?
The patent, yeah, the
Yeah.
patent
The
is
fat.
the
Yeah.
patent, and the gold plate. And I
That's right. It
talk
was the
about the
plate.
importance of that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I had forgotten what they call that, but yeah, it's the patent.
general patent. I go.
Different
Anyway,
spelling. Different spelling. But
different
it's
spelling. Yeah.
yeah.
Patent. Patent.
Patent. Patent. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on from. All right. So should he accept the plane? Should Trump accept the?
Hell no.
I
That
don't
was
think he should, but if he
number one.
does, he wants to, and Congress should vote because it would be considered a bribe, would it not? It would be considered unethical, would it not?
We even, I mean, considered. It's patently unethical and it's patent bribery. I mean, it's not. You're saying would be if they actually took the time to make a statement about it, right?
Yeah,
Because it's patent. It's right.
yeah.
It's obvious. It's on
But
its
but if
face.
he gets away with it, it says, "Hey, United States of bribery, we're
We're all for sale, man.
for sale." And
We're all for sale. What
and
you got? How
and
many
that
billions can you put in my pocket?
and that has always been the big thing about when you go to a third world country or go to the Philippines. You can always bribe someone to get out of something. That if you have money, you get out of it. Not in America, right? Rule of law. We're moral. Accept a bribe, you go to jail. Anyone accepts a bribe, hey, that's against
You
the law.
offer a bribe, you go to jail.
Yeah. I mean, any kind of quid pro quo. And now here's the quid. Here's the, I mean,
And this is right out in the open. It's like no. We're still going to punish people who try to bribe their way out of, like women who bribe their way out of getting a ticket.
yeah.
You know,
But I mean, but Trump doing it. I mean, this is leading to a lawless America, right?
leading to
Well, I mean, that's the
it,
next. We're on the
it's
path to the
it,
law. I mean, we're not there yet.
oh yeah, we're there. We're
We're there.
already there. It's just we do it in little ways. Okay, it starts with like cheating on your income taxes, right?
Yeah.
It's like that kind of thing. And I from my own community,
Mhm.
are you kidding? Filipinos and faking stuff on the income tax? Come on, man. Okay.
It's
How about some of the other? I'm not going to mention some of the other Asian American ethnic groups, but one of the things that I said in class that I shouldn't have said was, if you want to know how to really escape paying heavy income taxes, run a business.
Oh well, that's obvious. That's what
Run a business.
white people have done that, right? It's entrepreneurial. Everything becomes a write off.
It's much easier, right, to make let's say allocate costs,
Yeah.
so that you reduce your income, right, and then talk about reinvesting some of your income for improvement of the business, right, and that's one of the ways to encourage people to buy a newer computer, for example,
Yeah.
or to buy a better in-house telecommunications system, that kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
and the Republicans killed that. They killed that, man. Remember when it was under the Bush 2 administration
Yeah.
that they rolled back deductions for things like uniforms
Right. Well, see,
and equipment.
we had moral Republicans who are trying to do the right thing to find the tax, to find the cuts to fund the tax cuts. They cut these other things, but now
There still are Republicans who want to do the right thing. The
right,
problem is they're scared because they're going to lose their job if they get primaried, right?
right.
They're scared of
But,
that, fear that.
well,
They
how,
also fear the possibility of physical assault, harm to their families, okay? Because
yeah.
they've seen it happen.
Well,
Okay?
what do you say to the five who blocked the big beautiful bill? And
I say hooray.
well,
Good
yeah,
for
but
you.
the thing about them is that they are blocking it not because the tax cuts to the rich. They're blocking it because they want even further cuts, in the budget, which is like,
Yeah. Well, for different places too. They want it. They want the cuts in specific places and in specific amounts. Yeah.
but but nothing. But they say nothing about the tax cuts to the rich.
Yeah.
They
No, no. Generally speaking, they're all for, favoring the billionaires.
and the thing that
And
leads
that
me,
started with Ronald Reagan, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
But it seems that the Republicans now just want government to work for the rich. Government for the rich. The poor, forget it. If you're not rich in America,
that's okay. That's an overinvestment in a very romantic notion of capitalism. Okay, that's what it is. It's like capitalism lifts all boats. Who said that?
yeah.
Friggin' Reagan, right? He pushed all of that stuff. Okay,
But now it's like, no, it doesn't lift all boats. It lifts some boats, and if you're not rich enough to have a boat, I'm sorry, you don't
you're
belong.
gonna drown. You just get to drown. You get to
Right,
drown in your medical expenses.
right.
You get
If you're lucky, well, yeah. There's no luck involved. No health care, no job, no food. Sorry, you don't qualify for America. It's like they've got this income level to, like America becomes this private club. That's
well.
what the country's becoming.
Yeah, no, you got Afrikaners.
Yeah,
You got Afrikaners who are
coming in.
getting the equivalent of most favored nationalists
Yeah,
treatment
yeah, yeah.
by coming in, and they're getting a head start. They're getting housing. They're getting stipends. Okay, because according to Musk, they have been suffering violence in South Africa, and so they're refugees. They have refugee status.
Yeah,
Okay.
and yet most of them will say when they get interviewed, say, "Well, we're we don't really want to leave. It's nice that America's got our back, but we own most of the stuff here. We're still in charge of what we have. So a
Yeah.
generalization from Musk has forced Trump to say, "Oh, well, Elon says it must be true," and let the Afrikaners in because the real issue there is the United States needs more white people, and we might as well get the right kind. The racist kind will come in and then use birthright citizenship to make more babies, more white babies, right?
Yep. Yep.
That get the birth rates up. Get it might as well be half Afrikaners and half American, or
Yeah, but are their kids going to be educated and driven and motivated enough so that they can take on the South Asians?
no, probably not.
Because remember when the Afrikaners kicked all of the Asians out of South Africa?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know what's going to happen? It's like they're all going to be addicted to video games, and so they don't care. They won't care.
The kids,
How
yeah,
do we
no, yeah, and the boys will be addicted to vaping and porn.
Yeah,
Okay,
vape.
and then they won't, yeah. And
This is
so,
the white male, thing, right? Vaping, porn, no women.
evidently,
Eh,
evidently,
The answer, poetry.
yeah,
They learn
when they,
poetry.
when you
Become
talk about,
empathetic.
yeah, yeah, talk
Poet, give
about, you want to talk about P Diddy? They say what kind of oil?
yeah. No, the answer is poetry, meditation, and yoga. Those three. That
Yeah, you're making me feel guilty. I haven't been doing enough
yeah.
physical exercise.
Or yoga, um, empathy, and yoga, poetry, and meditation. Yeah. Those three things would help the celibate white males.
Yeah, but they draw the line at like limericks. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah.
so that's the problem. I mean, we're not.
But they would be more attractive. Then the women would like, and then you get to meet the women in yoga class.
Yeah, we're not talking Shakespearean sonnets, man. I mean, they're into. There was a man from Amsterdam who's
Yeah,
bald.
we could do haiku, South Asian thing. All right,
Yeah,
so
that's too free. It's too free, and they won't get the metaphorical.
all right, let's move into the birthright citizenship talk. We're
Oh,
talking about,
whoa!
well, only because the Supreme Court heard the arguments about the 14th Amendment. It wasn't really about birthright citizenship per se, but it was more
Directly,
about,
yes. It
yeah,
was
whether
indirect.
or not federal judges, district judges, could block the
It's about
the
the national effect of
right.
district judge decisions. Yeah.
And it's the whole thing about, should we have these universal injunctions
Well, they were
nationwide?
doing. Were they doing it like crazy around abortion themselves? Weren't they
Oh yeah,
doing that? Weren't they forum shopping and taking cases to Texas and Louisiana because they knew that one district court judges would back them up and strike down whatever it is that they wanted to block, whatever it was, and whatever kind of legislation,
yeah,
even if it was dangerously, the legislation would present a clear and present danger to women's health, especially those who had suffered miscarriages or were about to suffer miscarriages. They couldn't get a DNC to
yeah,
save their lives because they had to be proven. It had to be proven that their lives were actually at stake. Okay, and they got decisions like that in their favor. And where did they get them? Texas.
yeah.
And then those had national effect until they were challenged in appellate courts, and even the Fifth Circuit backed up those district court decisions.
Right. So this is just a mode of operation that they're trying now using the 14th Amendment. But if they go to the court and they try to block what the district judges do, then pretty much this is the King Me. This is the King Me law, right? This essentially makes the executive branch, gives the executive branch the power of a king. You can do whatever you want. If you take your Sharpie, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
District judges can't stop you.
Yeah.
And as we've been talking, the Supreme Court just let's see. This is from the Washington Post. A divided Supreme Court on Friday continued to block the Trump administration's use of a rarely invoked wartime power to deport migrants in northern Texas, and said administration officials had not given those targeted for removal last month sufficient time to challenge their deportations. So they're blocking the Supreme Court has upheld the judges, or upheld the block. So we see this is maybe uncharacteristic of what we have seen in the past or more recently from the Supreme Court, where we see them as maybe following the Trump line. So this is a hooray moment for the rule of law, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen how what the count was in terms of the justices' positions, but I would suspect that Thomas
Alito and Thomas dissented, so it looks like it was 7.
There it is. That's consistent with the previous two decisions.
Yeah. So this means that the court is saying, yeah, the block on some Trump deportations holds. You can't deport someone without due process, and yet Abrego Garcia is still in El Salvador. Still, he's a reminder. Hey, we got this one guy. He's going to be the one guy. And so,
yep, I got a. Yep, they again said you can't use the Alien Enemies Act.
And so this is they find these. The Trump administration finds all these laws that then they haven't been used in decades. They use them to put forth the cockamamie idea to like get rid of due process.
And with the exception of Lincoln using it, before the Civil War. Actually, we weren't at war at that time, but then every other time that it's been used, we actually have been at war. And that, of course, includes the incarceration of Japanese people of Japanese descent, including Japanese American citizens, right, during World War II in American concentration camps. I remember how people would get really upset when I used the term concentration camps.
Well, that's what they are. I mean, people. I mean, I remember when people. There was almost like the community got a sense of the reality, and they said, "Oh, they are being incarcerated. They're not just being held. They are being imprisoned. These are concentration camps. They are
And they
prison.
were, they volunteered after being told, here are the kind of things that you can do to help the war effort. So they
Right.
volunteered and did work. But then when people cite the fact that they volunteered, it makes it sound like, oh yeah, it wasn't so bad,
Yeah.
wasn't.
Well, so now that we have the Supreme Court 7-2 saying, yeah, due process applies, you can't deport. This is at least it gives some sense of how the court is and how they might rule on birthright citizenship. They might say, yeah, the district courts, you can block if it's against the law. You have to go through the process, right? Or it would
Yep.
seem it seemed from the questioning yesterday that the judges were pretty much set that you got to respect the rule of the judges. I mean, even the conservatives yesterday seemed to indicate that, aside from Alito and Thomas, who didn't say hardly anything.
Yep.
So maybe we're going to go through on the 14th Amendment. They did mention Wong Kim Ark a couple of times.
Right.
The Asian American case, or the Asian American case, the guy from San Francisco, the Chinese American,
Right.
who upheld,
They
the
said he was a citizen, and and he could come back into the country. He was trying to re-enter the country, and he was initially denied, and went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And it was one of the few instances, where issues involving rights, due process rights, 14th Amendment due process and equal protection rights, were decided in favor of an Asian American plaintiff. So
but Dan, the thing of what I don't like about the way Trump is going about this, if this is his MO, right? Let's break the law, litigate afterwards. Let's break the law and see how far we can get.
Oh yeah,
that doesn't seem very American. It doesn't.
Well, but he's not out to be American. He's out to access as much power as possible. When you see that as his goal, if you can accept that is his goal, right, is to gather as much power as possible in one position. If you understand the concept of the unitary executive, right, as an ideal, okay, and that's what he's trying to prove, then everything he's doing is logical. It's not crazy. It's logical, okay? And this is one attempt to do that, especially when they have had, up until this moment, right, these last few decisions over this last week and a half or so, right, when they believe that they're arrogantly that Supreme Court is acting on their behalf and willing to act on their behalf.
But you know what this means, though, is that if this is the case, this is Trump's MO, do the illegal thing, do the unlawful thing, and then, go to court later, go all the way up to the Supreme Court. It gives him some time to be illegal, and also it stays illegal until someone has the wherewithal to find an attorney to
That's
fight.
the way the system works. That's the way the system works. The interesting thing is, okay, the only way that you can challenge these things is somebody has to be harmed. The plaintiff has to have standing.
Right.
Okay. That's the whole thing. And for months I have been asking, even just before he was sworn in, when I started thinking about these things when right after the election, and that is my question: so what if you get court decisions? Who's going to enforce it? Okay?
Yeah.
If they're violating court decisions, the penalty is contempt, and clear resistance can result in the contempt charge moving from a civil offense to a criminal offense. And if that's the case, who's going to enforce it? Because it's supposed to be marshals and other officers acting under the authority of the Department of Justice. They own the Department of Justice. So who's going to enforce the law?
Dan, haven't you don't you remember from Andy of Mayberry, Barney Fife, citizens arrest, citizens arrest.
Right,
It's up
right.
to the citizens, up to the
So,
people, right?
so we're going to commit the arrests.
Or we have to go to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
We're going to be the ones who perpetrate the arrests, right? We're going to be the ones who enforce the law.
Enforce the law. It has to be, right?
Isn't that what the guys were trying to do on the 6th of January, etc.?
Well, but they were on the wrong side.
They didn't think so, and they
you
still don't think so now. And they were all pardoned. 1,600 people were pardoned.
You got to get the EDSA people, the Filipinos.
Well, yeah,
they were on the right side.
Yeah, but you got to have the right Virgin Mary in front, right?
That's the thing. I say the people half jokingly, but also half, seriously. That it's got to be the people rising up saying, "Hey, this doesn't happen in our America." But
yeah,
it is.
It's gonna be the few states, the minority of states that come forward and assert the law, because they have been harmed, and their people have been harmed. The federal employees who have been illegally fired and laid off, right? They live in our states, and so they're, as citizens of states, they've been harmed, and so immediately the states can represent them and go forward. Our Attorney General Bonta has been really good at doing that, and there's at least 18 or 19 other states that are being also as aggressive. On some occasions, it's over 20 states, right, that are taking action in lawsuits that will probably win, and so we have to see how this goes. Then the question again is, who's going to enforce it? Okay, and it's going to be really interesting, because I think it should be state police. I think it should be state police, and then we'll see what happens. Is the DOJ going to send FBI out, and are going to be clashes out?
Well, this is the thing about you do these things Trump's way, right? Then there's going to be some like, for example, birthright citizenship. And they pointed this out yesterday. There's going to be some states where if you're born in the United States, you're a citizen. Some states you're born in the United States, you're not.
Yeah, and what the Trump standard is that both of your parents have to be present legally, right? That's it.
Right. So, and they wouldn't go back like decades, right? I mean, like my parents, when they had me, they were not citizens. And so,
okay, yeah, but they were present legally.
Well, I guess, but was that part of the? Is that part of the law?
That's the proposal. That's yeah.
So all right, so then I would be.
Your parents qualify and you're legal.
Even though they were here legally.
Yes,
they weren't. Although they weren't citizens.
Yeah, but they were present legally. So
all right,
that's it. That's where
All right, so I'm still good, but
how
about if you were born to an American in, say, Europe?
Yeah, or the Philippines, or China.
If your mother was in the Philippines and that's where you were born, are you legally a citizen? If she's a citizen,
that they could challenge it.
Yeah,
they could challenge it and say she was a citizen, but she wasn't in the country. So they could use a geographic argument, essentially.
See, that's the thing about all this. Everything becomes litigious. Everything becomes litigatable.
Well, because they have succeeded over this past 50 to 60 years. They have succeeded in most instances that do not go to the level of, let's say, a Roe versus Wade, overturning Roe versus Wade. Okay. But they have succeeded in many other ways. They have planned that ever since the 60s, when Supreme Court decisions, by the Warren Court, such as the Miranda warning, right?
Yeah.
They've eroded the original scope of the decision, the effect of the Miranda decision around warning people that they had a right to an attorney and a right to remain silent, right? That was it. And do you understand your rights? That was one of the things that didn't get enforced clearly until the 1970s, even though the Miranda decision was in the 60s. Right.
So, all right. So let's just wait to see what happens. The Supreme Court's going to rule on the 14th Amendment, probably in the summer, and then we'll see if they rule for Trump. I mean, my God, he could just do anything. He can just
Yeah.
offer up anything. And damn, the courts have always been the backstop for the rule of law and the Constitution. But
Well, what is heartening to me is that I see a lot of white people, is even in the more rural areas, suburban and rural areas,
yeah,
that are being very critical of their congressional representatives, for not
oh yeah,
standing up for
yeah,
due process, even as applied to people who may have entered this country, without appropriate documentation. They're even protecting those people. They're even, especially when there's families involved, especially when there's children involved, you know, and
yeah.
that's very heartening, because that means that there are people who are willing to act on those values. Okay.
Oh, and those values are quickly becoming less and less American values, unfortunately. But
You mean
they're
there's fewer and fewer people who actually live by those values?
right, right. But to see people act on the values of America that we,
Right.
as we know it, that's heartening. But you
Yeah.
know, there's so many people like you were talking about the greed thing. There's
Right.
people who believe in the greed thing. All right, now this, the economy could be an issue. This was just released. Consumer sentiment sinks near record low amid tariffs and inflation fears. Fresh data from the University of Michigan showed sentiment ticked down slightly in May compared to April as President Donald Trump's trade war threatened to raise prices on a range of goods. Sentiment is now down almost 30% since the start of the year before Trump took office. So it's down. My question to you is, a lot of people were fearful of tariffs, didn't understand tariffs. Now Trump is backing off tariffs somewhat. China's 145% is now down to 30. They're still feeling it. You can go to shops and you can see empty shelves. And I think most people are having, if they could save $10, $20 somewhere, they're going to save $10, $20 if they can. I mean,
Right.
people are feeling it. And that's going to have an effect on whether or not they like Trump, I
They're
think.
feeling it. They're feeling it. But there's a significant. Okay, there's two different positions, right? There's the people who are now, even if they were for Trump in the past, say what, this is a complete contradiction. This is not what I voted for. On
Yeah.
the other hand, there are people who are willing to say, well, let's there's he said there's going to be a little pain, so we're still willing to let this play out and see what happens.
Yeah.
So the really dire effects that unfortunately the Democrats kept on playing up. I really dislike this.
Yeah.
They blame everything on Trump. They blame everything on Musk. They say, okay, these are the people. These are the things that they're doing wrong, and they're missing the biggest point, and that is some of what these guys are doing is actually criminal. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so what they should be talking about is the fact that this is open corruption. This, and some of it is of a massive scale, and it's potentially criminal. Now, okay, now the problem with the Democrats is now they've said there's going to be empty shelves. My statement was, what if it doesn't happen, or what if it only happens for a couple of days, right? Because now that because Trump holds the power to raise or lower the tariffs. And so what happened with the market, right? That the market was a good indicator, right? It
Yeah.
dropped as low as almost 37. It went down to 37,000. And
Yeah.
and then it stabilized a little bit, came up to 39, and it stayed around 39 for a long time, right? So
Mhm.
what does he do a week and a half ago? He says, I'm going to reduce the 145 percent tariff on China down to 30, right?
30.
Isn't that, oh no, down to 80, and then real terms, okay? He says,
Uh-huh.
we'll go down to 30, and then China said, okay, we'll reduce the tariffs against the United States goods coming in down to 10. And so what happened? The market jumps back up, and guess what? My IRA is whole again, right? So my IRA is about the same place it was before Trump started his beautiful tariffs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what does that mean about the market? And are the cargo ships that are coming into Long Beach and Oakland and Portland and Seattle, right on the West Coast, got all of that Asian stuff coming in, especially the Chinese stuff, right? It's gonna get replenished now.
yeah.
However, the prices are going to be higher, so that's still going to be there. In the meantime, the Democrats have again lost credibility because the dire picture that they were describing has not become reality. So
Well,
they got to
it's
quit.
dire enough for a lot of people.
Oh, that's
I think it's any kind of drop. I mean, it's all relative, right? But if you're going on the on the billionaire millionaire scale, it all hurts, right? I mean, everything's going to hurt, right? Because you're the 99% where there's pain, the 1% feels nothing. I mean, that's the way I view it. That, even though you say, well, the shelves aren't totally empty and they're going to be replenished, it's not dire. Oh, I think it's plenty dire. I think
I think it's bad enough. I think it's
yeah,
bad enough. But
yeah.
no, I'm not just talking about the consumer end of in terms of the effects. I'm talking about the credibility of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Democratic Party has less credibility than any other institution in American society at this point.
I don't know about the Democrats now. I don't even know what I mean, Gavin Newsom doesn't know what the Democrats are. I mean, he seems to be going to the center or center right, and then Kamala Harris, she hasn't decided what she wants to do. Although when I talked to Ishmael Reed about this, he says, I don't know why she wants to be a politician. Why does she want to go back? So I don't know where
He froze.
So I don't know where the Democrats are. Everyone, like we were talking about earlier, everyone is independent. It seems. Give me the right answer, and I will follow you. Is what be tell me something good, I'll follow you, kind of thing. Oop.
I can't see you.
Okay, how about now?
All right, there we go.
All right, so I'm just saying that it seems that right now it's the Democrats don't know where to go. Newsom's
it's
the
disgusting.
right.
It's disgusting.
Newsom's going to the right. Kamala Harris doesn't know if she wants to run, and my friend Ishmael Reed says, "Oh, I don't know why she wants to run and be a politician at all." I don't know where the leadership's coming. It's not AOC. It's not Bernie. Everyone's independent, like you were saying, and that means we're susceptible to someone coming around who's messianic and can be a viable leader.
You got to look at some of the younger people, particularly the congressional representatives coming out of Florida that have been able to win elections in a state that is very red, and so those are the people that I think we need to nurture them.
The Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear, I like him.
He's good.
He's good. I mean, he's a blue and a red state. I don't know. I just don't trust any of them, especially now. Like Newsom's going to the right. I guess he's,
it's true that he's shifted rightward. Okay, but I don't think he's over the line into the right. I think he is trying to be centrist, and he's trying to say, in practical terms, I can work with the other side. Okay, and that's easier to do in California because the Republicans, are really in a very sore minority position here.
Yeah.
What I think is indicative of the criticism that you're making, that he may be going over the line to the right, is because he was willing to have conversation with Steve Bannon right up front,
Well, I mean, I think I'm all for communicating and talking, and we were talking about spying at the beginning of our conversation. Intelligence is helpful, but I would like to see some positive things. I think instead of politics, get into this is why Bonta, the AG, I think is doing the right thing, trying to work for the people, using the law, to make sure that people follow the law, fighting for people. I mean, it's an apolitical political stance. going with the law. So he's probably doing the right thing by not running for governor. That's for sure, especially with the big names still trying to figure out what they want to do and where they want to go. All right, Dan, one last topic, since wanted to end at a reasonable time. It's so weird to watch the news and see them talk about Trump and the plane and the Saudis, and then and then here he is breaking the law, right? Drifting out in the public. And then we see the Diddy trial. The Diddy trial.
Oh man.
CNN. I mean, they can't. Fortunately, it's in New York, so we don't get cameras in the court, because then it would be really salacious. When I talked to Ishmael Reed about this, he said, well, it's going to be good for ratings because people want to hear about the Diddy trial, and Diddy will be the new OJ, where everyone gets paid except OJ. And everyone, I mean, not that Diddy is very sympathetic, judging from the early testimony of Cassie Ventura, who could have a baby this weekend. But I just don't care. I mean, they're celebrities, so I guess that's why people care. But on the one hand, it brings in a new demographic, people who care about Cassie and Diddy. On the other hand, it really just shows a sordid side of America that maybe, they can have their trial, but we don't have to hear about it. What do you think?
Yeah, it is. I think it's a valid comparison with the OJ trial and the aftermath. I think that's a valid comparison. It probably won't have as long lasting an aftermath as the OJ trial. Okay. And
you froze.
That it kind of depends on what happens.
So
it kind of happens. What happens with Diddy is what matters. Okay, is he going to go to jail, and is he going to go to jail for life? I really doubt that he's going to go to jail for life, but because the trafficking thing is probably a little easier to defend. The charge regarding human trafficking, it's probably a little easier to defend and a little harder to prove. By the prosecution.
I mean, I don't see Rico.
I don't know. We don't know enough facts. Well, see, we've only heard from Ventura as a witness so far, right? I mean, it's been 3 days, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we need to hear from other people, like the security guard, that kind of thing.
I mean, they're very sordid, very tawdry, the sex, the freakouts and all that. In the security guard, or not the security, the escort. I think it's.
It sounded like a party that Anton LaVey would have thrown.
Yeah, Anton. Oh, now you're dating yourself, the satanic guy. No, but this is all right. So essentially, we have the modern orgy, as seen by Diddy. This is going on, the freakoffs or freakouts, and domestic violence.
Right.
But do we have trafficking?
Yeah.
Do we have good charges?
I am not familiar with the absolute details of a trafficking charge, but basically it means that you've actually forced people, right, on a large scale, to be active in things that they wouldn't do. They're being forced to act in a given manner. Now, I think it's possible, obviously it's possible to make the charge. And I don't know how big the freak-offs were. Were there 50 people? How many people were doing this against their will? So all of those kinds of facts are things that we haven't seen yet, that haven't been disclosed to the general public.
If you just extrapolate, 25 gallons of baby oil and 16 ounces per person, and then divide, and then you come up with a figure. You come up with something that you can present in court. You say, well, there might be 5, 10 people. See, I don't know, and then I didn't even know any Diddy songs.
It's and I don't really care. I don't really care either. He has promoted some pretty good artists, but but I wouldn't want to be associated with that anymore. Remember when he had his very short-lived TV show where
Did
they did hip hop talent basically,
no, I don't.
and uh
I didn't.
and
I
I
wasn't watching. Was it on BET? Was it on a real channel like ABC? All black.
yeah, it was on a regular channel, a real channel. You mean? And was it on antenna or cable? Yeah, or satellite. Yeah, it was on antenna,
I
so
I
traditional.
I
But it
didn't.
was short, very short lived, and it was his personality came out, and as really aggressive and hypercritical, in in a mean way, not in a nurturing or a friendly or uh, you know let's say encouraging way, but
Yeah.
in a really critical way, and very negative.
Well, I
So
he's not sympathetic to I don't find him sympathetic. Let's see.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
he'll take the
Well, and
stand.
he also had shit. I can't remember. Oops, I'm sorry. I can't remember his name, but he had one of the DJs on, who also is a promoter and a recording icon.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Well, let's see what happens. I don't know. I
but
just
see, the person that I feel sympathetic towards
yeah.
is J Lo,
Oh,
because
jail.
she was the core center judge. You know how the pattern for all of
Oh,
these
oh yeah,
the pattern for all of these contests is
yeah,
they put a woman in the middle, right?
yeah. And so
So yeah, so American Idol had a woman in the middle, and so this show also had J Lo in the middle, and she was cool, she was good, but I sure as hell wouldn't want to be associated. I wouldn't want people looking on YouTube for for past episodes of that show because
Halo and
she
Diddy.
was sitting right there, copacetic with a guy that's facing
Well,
some extremely serious charges.
yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. I mean, what I care about is that it sucks a lot of air from the news time where the
Yeah.
news could actually be covering real
Hey,
news
you know.
that makes a difference. But they need the ratings, and it's just so weird to see Wolf Blitzer talking about Diddy
Yeah,
with
well,
with
the
their
only thing that even gets close to competing, like we said, was the OJ trial, and
yeah.
also, and I don't know if it held the national attention the way that it held California and West Coast attention, uh, but the infamous person who was never punished for the Zodiac killings, right?
But there was that on TV?
It was always blurred. Okay, it
Oh,
was always blurred. So if it made the papers every time there was a new killing, right? And
yeah.
it was and the Zodiac signed off on it. It made TV. Yes, it
But
did.
that had to be in the early '80s, '70s,
70s and 80s. Yeah.
'70s. So I mean, we're in a different media world now. We if it's not on TikTok, it doesn't count.
Wow.
If it's not on TikTok, it doesn't count.
Now,
We're in the TikTok age now. Like we have talked for an hour and 20 minutes. I'll put
oh,
out
shoot.
I'll,
I'm
I'll put
sorry.
I'll put out a little like a couple of 59-second things, and they'll get more hits
Oh, sure, sure
than
they
an
will.
hour and 20, and that's because we're in the TikTok world now. All right, so one last thing I want to ask you. The Filipinos, they had an election. I didn't really, I didn't really follow it because there was more pressing stuff here in America. But I'm wondering, do you think the Marcoses are upset that they got the good Republicans, the moral Republicans, Reagan and Bush, and not the bad Republicans? Like, you know, because if they were for as bad as the Marcoses were, man, Trump would have been all over them, right? He would have loved them. He would have loved the old Marcos. Is the new Marcos trying to be Mr. Democracy, trying to rehab? He's not. You know, he, he, he's not a big enough draw. He's not a big enough bad guy. Bong bong. Not a big enough bad guy for Donald Trump. What do you
Yeah, he
think?
doesn't want to be a bad guy. That's the whole thing. When they polished the Marcos legacy,
Yeah.
right? That's what he has to live up to. Is all of the positivism that was associated with his father's legacy.
But isn't that the unfortunate thing, that now he doesn't have to be positive? He could have, like, just like played it all up. I'm the bad guy. I'm the badass. And Trump would have, come up to him and said, "Okay, do you have a $400 million plane to give me?"
Yeah, I understood your original question. Yeah, they didn't get the good Republicans. They got the
Or they got the good They got the
they
good
got the good.
Republican,
Yeah,
the
they didn't get
moral
the
one.
good. They didn't get the good Republicans this time, right?
Yeah.
But they're hard to find. That's one of the reasons they didn't get the good Republicans, because they're not in top offices, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm wondering, did they ask Christy no? Because she's so flexible,
Yeah.
she would. All they have to do is offer her some TV time.
Oh,
right?
she's there, and she'll
and
put on a tank top, and
that's right. That's right. And put her in front of a couple of prisoners.
Yeah.
A couple hundred prisoners in a typical Manila basic
Christy Noem.
holding cell.
I mean, I just think that if I were Ferdinand Marcos Jr., I'd say, timing. Oh, we could have had Trump. Yeah, he would have loved us.
That's really dark.
He would have loved us.
Yeah. Now, as much as I was critical of the Marcoses on the whole, right? You could see that the kids, he did some stupid things, right? As a kid, as a young adult, but I think he's very conscious of all of the problems that his parents' actions brought to the country and to the world, and I think he's trying to avoid that. And can you imagine having his mother as his mother? I mean,
yeah. So Dan, you are pro bong bong. You're being pro bong bong.
No, I'm just giving him an even chance. That I am definitely critical of Mr. Bong Bong, but when you compare him to Duterte, what do you want?
Exactly. But Duterte, remember, Duterte was Duterte didn't like the U.S. He was like, and
he was hyper nationalistic. He was. I think the thing that Duterte probably dislikes most now is that he was a Marcos loyalist, and he was the guy who made it okay to bring Daddy Marcos's body and give it an appropriate treatment and burial and all that.
So, what do you think about the duels? There was a time when being dual citizen was like everyone wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's still as strong. I think it's not as high as people think.
It depends on what you think was the motivation. And I think the primary motivation was for Filipinos who were in the U.S. and wanting dual citizenship is the ability to function like a Philippine citizen in the Philippines. Okay. But the Philippines was interested in taxing them and trying to find different ways of capitalizing, monetarily on dual citizen American Philippine dual citizenship, and that's what that's all about. Okay, so some people were motivated by the belief that they could, with dual citizenship, be effective in trying to make very positive change by engaging in some honest business activity and developing political activity, working with communal businesses, right? That work well in the Philippines. Been very successful in the Philippines. Particularly in the rural areas, the areas, the agricultural areas and the fishing areas.
Yeah, I just think it's hard to be a good citizen for one country that rather than be dual citizen. I think I could have qualified to be a dual citizen, but
I think we could too.
But it was too long ago, or I once inquired where I thought, oh, it might be cool to go back. But I'll tell you, I don't know how. Is it safe in the Philippines? See, that I'm still at that thought. I mean, not that I think the hook ball hop are running wild there, but I feel American. I've always felt a Filipino American. but my heart, I have some heartstrings, connected to the Philippines, no doubt.
Sure.
My parents, but I'm an American. I realize that, but I am still concerned. Still,
Yeah, yeah. I haven't really looked lately.
yeah.
So can I answer? I can't answer you
Well,
on.
see, that's the thing. That's the thing about I think the Philippines is not. It's not top of mind. It's top of mind if China wants to go in there, and because there's an agreement with the U.S. The U.S. it will be forced to go in there and do something on behalf of the Philippines. But right now, the Philippines is just I don't know. It's like a nice footnote, first colony. A lot of things that the Filipinos did. You can go back and say, yeah, that the United States shouldn't have done that. But I don't know how.
Yeah, everything is the problem with the Philippines is that as long as it enjoyed an immigration relationship to the United States, right?
Yeah,
That was based on the professionalization of the colleges and universities, right? That we were putting out really well educated, top notch people with top notch capabilities in the medical field, in the sciences, right? And that was great. But now the United States has taken this strong anti-immigrant position, and it's being enforced.
yeah,
So the next group of people that they could go after, obviously, if they can try and locate TNTs, right?
yeah,
Tago ng Tagos, people who have changed their identity
yeah,
or overstayed their visas. So
yeah,
that's the next group, right? They entered legally, but overstayed their visas and became, quote, illegal or undocumented because of the expiration of their visas. So that's going to be the next group. And so I think Filipinos are starting to wake up to the fact that there are elements in American society that are traditionally racist, and that is a traditional element.
yeah,
That's it. It's a real thing. There are people in this society that believe that there should be exclusivity of white power and white leadership, white supremacy in
yeah.
American society. And so, so many Filipinos are just saying, no, that's not true, and well, until they become victims of it. And that's, again, part of the problem of people's lack of perspective. You know,
Or,
it-
or understanding of history, or understanding about the political and social history, and I guess this will dovetail with our final topic. I mentioned DEI
that's right.
because there was a poll um, conducted by AP in the Nork Center. It found that 4 in 10 Americans strongly or somewhat favor DEI programs in colleges and universities. So that's not a bad number, 4 in 10. 3 in 10 oppose those initiatives, and 3 in 10 are neutral. So a third oppose, a third are neutral, but nearly 40% strongly. It suggests that it's not, it's all over the map about how DEI is perceived and whether or not they go along with Donald Trump. I mean, if you think that DEI is like those who are in favor, right? They're for history, they're for ethnic history, they're for learning about racism, and they're about learning about um, basically students from underrepresented groups. They want that. But when you are opposed to DEI, you see it as affirmative action. You see it as, breaks, scholarships for people from underrepresented groups who don't deserve it, right? And so that's how it breaks down. Your different views of DEI's meaning. And some of those people who have those views about DEI happen to be people of color too.
That's right.
So
That's right. There people, once again, people want to romanticize America. They want to believe in America as believing in equal opportunity and equality. And the reality is that every group, whether racially defined, ethnically defined, defined by class that has enjoyed a higher level of fair and equal treatment, in American society. They had to be part of an aggressive organized action in order to realize those changes in American society. They had to do more than resist. That's the problem. Okay. And that's what's required in the United States now. It's not sufficient to simply resist the onslaught of attacks on rights, on general right, constitutional rights. Okay, there has to be active attack against the people who are actively pursuing
And
diminution of rights.
how would that's at the ballot box? How do
Well,
you?
eventually at the ballot box, but I think the protests are good. That's a good idea. I
Yeah,
think, especially actions involving criticisms of members of Congress,
yeah,
actions involving criticisms of Supreme Court decisions, like AOC and Bernie have been pinpointing specifically the Citizens United case, and
yeah,
people have to be educated about the effect of the Citizens United case.
yeah. And
It was a welcome mat to open electoral corruption. That's what it was. And
yeah,
you have to attack, rather than the oligarchy, the Democrats should be talking about attacking open corruption. They should be attacking corruption, political corruption, and economic corruption. It's blatant, it's obvious. Okay.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what they should be doing.
And sometimes it's just speaking out. Sometimes it's just being.
Talking to your neighbors and trying to form some level of consensus,
Yeah.
not only about how they're going to vote, but what kind of people they would like to see run for office.
Right. And it's not, we're not talking about being antagonistic. We're just talking about talking. It's just,
Yes,
unfortunately,
yes, and
uh,
people. We need honest and true conservatives. I,
yeah,
I am very much pro traditional conservatism. We need people who have intellectually honest and accurate criticisms
mm,
of whatever's going on in American society,
yeah,
not just criticisms of Democrats because they're Democrats, or
right.
because they're liberal, right?
See,
And the same thing has to be true of Democrats and so-called liberals.
yeah, I agree with you that we need a more uh, open and more civil kind of discourse. And unfortunately,
You
uh,
know, the people who recommended me to go to law school were clerks of the California State Supreme Court,
yeah,
and they were friends of my dad.
yeah,
And they were even. It was evenly based. Some
yeah,
were Republicans and some were Democrats. But the man who was closest to us, and who I actually had conversations with about the possibility of going to law school, and this is while I was in high school. He was recommending that, was a Republican,
yeah.
and he was chosen by the Reagan campaign to serve in Washington.
Because they know the importance of getting diverse views. I mean, diversity is not a bad word, but Trump has made it a bad word.
He I don't know if they were that interested in diversity as much as they were interested in people who showed some talent, some promise, and
Well,
and
yeah,
and
but
wherever it came from,
right,
wherever it came from. and
right.
and well, the other thing I had an advantage was that I don't know, three or four of the justices and their children were Jesuit educated.
Oh,
They,
so they,
they
yeah.
they went to SI and they went to USF, or Santa
Fine.
Clara, like
So,
that. And so there was another connection there as well.
well, but all those things, that's part of being a part of the network, the old boy
That
network,
that's
right?
right.
And
That's
and,
right.
and what look at me. I rejected the old boy network. I got into the oldest boy network and essentially did not use it
Yeah, yeah.
because I felt empowered by rejecting it, I think.
Well, but see, you still get to say you rejected it.
Yeah, yeah,
And that
right.
has its own, right,
It's got its
prestige.
cachet. It's
It
got
has it does
yeah,
have
I
its own.
walked away with it. I could
Yeah,
have said
that's right. That's
yeah,
right. Okay, but you could use it either way, right? Depending on
yeah,
the location. It depends on the locus.
Except now I want to proudly say that among the institutions that is fighting back against Trump 2.0,
Harvard
is Harvard. So
Harvard.
and that's and you look at the Supreme Court. Harvard Law had a good day. Yesterday you got Ketanji Brown Jackson, you got Elena Kagan, you got we won't say Justice Roberts. He hasn't really shown.
Well, he's
yet.
What cracks me up is how the media says, well, he's concerned about his legacy, right? Man, that's shot. I mean, he would. How are you going to reverse all that stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, how can you reverse everything? Your legacy is shot, dude. You're going to be seen as having participated in some of the worst decisions made by the Supreme Court. It's in its entire history.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
this is and reversals and all right. Look, Dan, at this point, I must
we went way over.
Now I have to go. But look, I appreciate you coming on, and as always, and we got to get together for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month at some point. So I'll talk to you offline, and we'll talk to you about maybe the Alpha. I'll get you the Alpha.
Yeah, we need to talk about that for sure.
All right, there he goes, Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies. My friend, we talk about these things because he knows these, and then we show this discussion. This is what what does an Asian American think? This is what this show's about. Two Asian Americans talking about stuff, real stuff that no one wants to see. And breaking news, that's because hey, we're talking about it. Breaking news. Breaking, where is it? There. Breaking news because we're talking about it. Anyway, thank you for joining me. We'll put this out and we'll join me again next time. There might be some things over the weekend. I don't know. See me on Monday Night March, May 19th. San Francisco March, 1062 Valencia Street. Get your tickets there. Ovation Ticks. Yes, please. Please see me there. And swish out for Ishmael Reed. James. No, James. We talked about that in an interview I did with Ishmael. You can find it on YouTube. Emil Amok 1 on my YouTube channel. But his play, Life Among the Aryans, Black Rep Group, Oakland. It's on till June 1st. Get your tickets at Eventbrite. Funny play, satirical play. It predicted the June 6th insurrection. We want to thank our regular listeners. Juanita Salai Wilson said she enjoys everything we do. Emil and Dan, thank you, Juanita, and muchas gracias to all of you. We like to leave with a little loving kindness. Yeah. A little meditation. So as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Ease. Why not ease? Yeah. Do nothing. Listen to all these shows, on the YouTube channel, back to back. It's like, having all night, late night radio again. I did that for a while on the sister station of KGO. They didn't make me go to 5 o'clock in the morning. I can get out at like 1 o'clock, but late night. Yeah, late night. Anyway, Emil Guillermo here. Emil Amok to you. Till next time. Mahal.